Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 5. This week, we're going to be covering chapters 10 and 11, and we're going to be covering the eye and the ear, similar to what we did in ICD 10. They're right next to each other, and we're only going to be covering the PCS content, of course. So that starts on or about, I believe it's slides 26 and 25, respectively. So the whole thing about PCS is if you understand each of the 7 characters, it's very, very straightforward once you understand these things. So most of the first character, if it's a procedure, many times it will start with 0. So the thing is, once you're in the right section, you have to get the correct root operation. So ask yourself, what's the purpose of the operation? What are they trying to do? And so there are a lot of different root operations you can see. Some of the things will be a little bit confusing. Like, for instance, one that a lot of students seem to get confused is the difference between excision, cutting out a portion of a body part, and a resection, which is taking out the entire body part, right? So be clear on that. Other ones you'll see are things like drainage, repair, replacement. And we think of replacements when we're putting something in that's taking the place of something. Inspection, of course, is just looking at something, and then removal. So to figure out what the correct root operation is, ask yourself, what's the purpose of this procedure? And then again, when you have ears and eyes, you'll want to be clear on whether it's the left, the right, or if it's bilateral, right? And then it's very helpful to know the different parts of the eye and the ear, what a cornea is, what a lens is. Sounds kind of obvious, but you can't really code a procedure unless you understand the terms of each body part. And then, of course, confirm laterality, and you should be in pretty good shape. With the approaches, you don't want to guess. A lot of times people just have it in their head that it's always endoscopic or it's always open, or they get confused with what's external and what's open. External means performed in the skin, right? So think about the approaches. How is the surgeon, how is the provider getting to the site of the operation? Okay. So again, this is a chapter where if you read the procedure note carefully, if you follow the instructions, and of course check laterality, you should be in pretty good shape, right? There are some terms on different parts of the eye and the ear you may not be familiar with, and that's when it's helpful to have a medical dictionary handy. I hope you find all of this helpful. Please reach out if you have any questions about this material. Thanks so much, and we'll see you online. Bye now.